This episode of the Simon Racing Report is brought to you by the SimonRacingReport.com. How sad. Been about 6 months since we last didn't have an advertiser for this podcast. But hey, we'll get it back soon. But we're going to sell this minute to our website. Check out the columns. Check out my latest one about sim racing, The Transaction. I talk about Fernando Alonso's own esports team and the biggest driver acquisition in pretty much quite some time that I can remember. It's all in the column as well. Got some good feedback on that. It's pretty funny for some people too. I talked about my wish list for the 2018 F1 streaming service, which, unfortunately isn't going to be available in Australia anyway, so I'm sort of stuffed with that. But you can read all things such as how to improve the Formula One World Constructors Championship, the ideal Formula One calendar, the Paul di Resta strategy theory. It's all there on the Simon Racing Report. Subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher. You can grab the RSS feed too. And please like the podcast on Facebook. If you haven't already, we need some more likes. And on Twitter too, you can follow me at JohnnyS8, JONNYESS8. For now, let's get to it. Welcome to the Simon Racing Report. It's post-race time. And Paul Smith is joining me once again. Paul, what a race. We saw 700 overtakes. We saw the new DRS zone do so much for the racing too.
Man, it was the most memorable of all the races of all the time. Australia never fails to deliver in this new era of Formula One.
We will discuss a lot of this soon. It wasn't that bad of a race, to be honest with you. It was the strategy made it entertaining. A bit of the drama with the Haas team, which we'll discuss soon. The VSC coming into play as well. I really liked that midfield battle between Haas, Renault, and McLaren. God, that was entertaining. But how are we going to do this? We're going to go through race results. And we'll talk about pretty much all 20 teams and just give us your recap. Bit of stuff in between. Sebastian Vettel, number one, Paul. We'll cover him and Ferrari, first of all. I'm not surprised with their race pace. I mean, I knew Lewis with that qualifying lap in the Mercedes, and if Valtteri didn't crash, surely he would have been on that front row. They were pretty quick, but it's always been that way. Ferrari and Red Bull are a bit more closer during the race, and that's something where Mercedes have need to improve, is that race pace.
And once again, we've shown that... I know we're talking about Sebastian, but we're once again shown that Mercedes can't stick behind and attack a car in front. But Sebastian Vettel did the perfect job. Okay, he didn't qualify the best that he could, but where it matters, on race day, he turned up and everything just fell into their place with that strategy. And, clever of them to wait it out, because generally you're going to get a safety car at the Australian Grand Prix, and waited it out, got that virtual safety car. As soon as that came out, right, get in. Pit lane's not part of the virtual safety car rules, so you can speed up a little bit in the pit lane on the entry to the speed limit in the pit lane.
Yeah.
And that's what did it for them. And once they were out in front, you knew that they'd stay in front because they had the race pace. Came under a bit of pressure, but, Vettel, and let's not forget Kimi as well. He wasn't that far behind either. Kimi he was showing feist. He was feisty at the start, wasn't he, down to turn 3, which was great to see. But, Kimi was there as well. He's not hanging back. It's not like he's ready to put his slippers on yet.
No, well... He's starting to get old, so I'm not. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. But he was very quick in that first stint. And look, I know it was very difficult to overtake at this track. The Mercedes was definitely the quickest car in not just qualifying, but the race as well. But I would think, if you're 9/10 quicker in qualifying, surely come the race, you should be able to pull off an overtake somewhere with 3 DRS zones. I don't know. It was. A lot of other drivers struggled too. I think when it's dry conditions in Australia with one-stop race, which Pirelli has given us again, it's never a recipe for overtaking. But as you said, I'm very satisfied. I feel like for Vettel, no, by the way, I want to take that back. I'm satisfied with other things. I'm not satisfied with Hamilton finishing second. But Vettel, very impressed by the fact that this is, I mean, it could turn out like that Alonso 2012 season where he might not have the quickest car and he just has to extract every single point he can this season to try and win the championship. And we could be seeing it starting from this race. This is one of those races where Vettel got an extra 7 points that he otherwise, could have not have had by the end of the event, except for the virtual safety car, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you're seeing there as well is Ferrari basically doing the same as what they did last year, didn't they? In the opening race. Outthought Mercedes with the strategy.
The double strategy, which, can I interject there? I was talking with a friend while watching the race, and I was thinking, oh, hey, this is perfect. You got to split them. Ferrari's always known for their terrible strategies, or putting Massa on a dud strategy and then Alonso on the good one. It's like, great, test out, do that now. Put Kimi on one strategy, force Hamilton to pit to defend the lead, and they're like, oh, let's just try something with Vettel. Let's just stretch him out. I think even if Vettel pitted, yeah, it would have been difficult to overtake for sure, but I don't think they planned for a safety car or a virtual safety car, but I think just having him on fresher rubber, who knows if anyone would have two-stopped. I don't think so, but very impressed by Ferrari's management of this race, and that's why we bring it back, Paul. That's why it's so important to have your teammate up there with you. Imagine if Bottas was in second.
Well, this is it. If Bottas is in around there, you've got that bit of extra help from behind. It means that he can manage their pace, because you weren't really able to overtake around here because of, it was the same as last year. The new regulations with the cars, it makes it more difficult to overtake. Formula 1 have realised this by putting the extra DRS zone in, but it still didn't help. Surprise, surprise! These drivers can't follow each other with these extra aerodynamic wings. Not like I've been saying it for 3 years.
No, no.
But having Bottas there, if they'd had a good start, if the Mercedes had been in the front row, had a good start, Bottas could have just sat behind, just ran at a little bit of a lesser pace to hold back the Ferraris, let Lewis Hamilton get that little bit of a gap, and then he could in turn then put on the pace himself, so he could then keep himself in that second place for after the pit stop phase. But is it just a case of Mercedes once again falling into that trap of getting reeled in by that pit stop from Kimi, having to see basically mirror that, and then lo and behold, Sebastian Vettel once again, that alternate strategy works out for them, and you're pretty much guaranteed to have a safety car there as well.
No, exactly. So, very impressed by that. And I think, didn't this happen last year with the virtual safety car? Is this a carbon copy of 2017?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And I know I'm an Australian Lewis Hamilton fan, which is two contradictory things you put together. But last year and this year, and there's been other years where I'm like, oh, Lewis, he's got a quick car, he's going to win at my home race, I'm going to be so happy celebrating. And look, I'm going to confess, as a Hamilton fan, this sucks. All right, this shit is bullshit. This is absolute crap. I don't know what I have to get to celebrate a Hamilton win in person. But hey, this is motor racing for you. There's when you look at Hamilton's pole positions, we always know that he's been sort of the inconsistent driver, which is one of his weaknesses, which also I think Rosberg hammered down on that on the weekend. But these types of losses here, you can't really blame him for these ones. And I know it happens to other drivers too, but this one was just well thought out by Ferrari. Bottas being in the play, which we've summarized, could have affected the race a lot more. Maybe could have helped one of the two Mercedes cars wins. Danny Rick, 4th place, only 7 seconds from the win. We know that was helped by the safety car period, but he was held up at the start by the Haas cars. I feel like that Red Bull, at those slow tracks, so if you look at tracks like Monaco, any other tracks we have this season that they're a good chance at Red Bull, the tracks with that straight line speed, or long straights, I should say, which is more important. Spain, possibly? Is that another Red Bull track where they could win?
It's more of a technical track as that, isn't it? Although it does have the long start finish straight.
Yep, Singapore, sorry, just to butt in. Singapore too.
Yeah, Singapore.
Austria, maybe. Who knows?
Austria is very much a high-speed track, as that. France, Paul Ricard, that could be a dark horse for them.
Yeah. Although I feel like that long straight could be
well, you
costing them
say
again.
that, but they've got the chicane in there as well, because they had to break up that straight, the Mistral straight.
So my point is that Red Bull looks quick, and obviously the reason why they were so far away from the Mercedes and the Ferraris were because of the Haas cars.
Yeah.
And so if they can really master and grab those Monaco wins, those Spain, Singapore wins, all those other tracks, maybe even Suzuka, who knows? Man, they're going to be good. Even Hungary too. I'm looking at those kinds of circuits. Red Bull, look out for them, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to be insanely quick, which we'll talk about big Fernando in a second and fifth. But Max Verstappen, you know that whole early stint where he was pushing too hard? It looked like he was going to lose control about 7 or 8 times in the first 10 laps, and he finally did. It reminded me of early sort of Lewis. You know, when Lewis came into the sport in 2007, and you're like, whoa, Lewis is erratic. He's going to crash sometime soon. And then sometimes what would happen to Lewis, he'd spin or something would happen. This is what we're seeing from Max now. And sort of, I feel like this is fine. You know, Max will learn from this in the future, and he'll end up adapting his style as his career progresses.
Yeah, and we've got to remember, he's still in his teens, isn't there?
Yeah. No, he's 20 now.
No, he's 20 now, sorry, yeah. But he's still very young. You know, he's still developing. And what was it? They reckon that you sort of brain doesn't mature until you're about 25, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So he's got a lot of learning to do. He's got a lot of experience to get, and really, you know, he's got this. He's got such an opportunity. He really has such an opportunity to be able to just kick on and get those. Fight for those positions and fight for those wins and championships. He's got a long way to go yet in his career.
Yeah. Hey, 2 minds think alike there.
Yeah, something like that.
So, I really liked that spin. I was there in person at Turn 1, as usual, at the race. Turn 1, best spot at the circuit. And man, that spin looked cool. I was so happy that I actually caught it before it happened. And I'm seeing the car spin. I'm like, wait a sec, the car's not supposed to look that way, but it looked like such a great, just, I don't know, that brings me that sort of adrenaline back, you know, as a fan in F1. Just seeing a car spin at Turn 1, seeing the sparks fly up when they're trying to attempt an overtake. At the start, you're watching the screen. So I'm watching the start of the race. And I'm like, oh, let's see what happens here. Like, who's going to lead into Turn 1? I see Hamilton, who's starting basically on the racing line. And I look from the screen, and there's that delay from what you're seeing in real life to what you see on the screens. And as I look from the screen where Hamilton's on the racing line, I look back on the racetrack. Boom, he's on the inside. I'm like, Jesus Christ, where did that Ferrari come from? And it's just so exciting, the adrenaline there. Hartley locking up. A great call by my friend next to me. I don't know if it was a guess, or maybe he just thought, who's the shittest driver on the grid? Oh, Brendan Hartley. He's probably the one who locked up. So
that's a bit harsh.
He Hartley ended up pitting, but hey, good. The Kiwi got a lot of support this race. So who did we skip here? Fernando, right? Held off Max in the end for P5. Couldn't overtake at the circuit anyway. That McLaren, did you see it during those wet practice sessions? How quick that McLaren was? I think if we have a wet race, that McLaren could be essentially like a top 3 car. Is that a bit optimistic to predict in the wet?
They've always been confident of the chassis, haven't they?
Yeah.
And to see it up there with Max, okay, it was holding up Max, but you look at it, you got the works. Renault wasn't that far behind either, but he was ahead of them, and he stayed ahead of them. So you've got the 3 Renault teams all sort of into play in that sort of battle there, the Renault engine cars. So it's really intriguing how they're going to really push on and develop, and whether McLaren, and I can't believe I'm saying this, whether McLaren have the money to be able to develop, because of the lack of sponsorship. It's still no sponsor on the side there. Come on, Zach, pull your finger out. But But it's a really promising showing from McLaren, not only just for Fernando there. You had Stoffel in 9th place, but he wasn't that far away either. I mean, he was only, about 6 or 7 seconds behind Fernando at the end there.
But that's because of the safety car.
I know it's partly down to the safety car, but still, you look at the gap that the front 4 had compared to the rest of them, it's still quite tight between that top of the mid-pack.
Yeah,
that's going to be the really intriguing battle throughout the season, is that mid-pack battle.
No, it is. You're right. The McLaren, the Haas's, and the Renaults, I almost forgot them. Van Dorn, though, was definitely shown up by Alonso again.
Yeah.
So Van Dorn's got to step up his game. As much as I love that dude, and he's got to show something where McLaren will say, you know what, you deserve this seat for the next few years. At the moment, I don't think he's really proving himself to be as good as a 2-time world champion. So there's a lot of pressure on Stoffel.
Again, he's young.
Yeah,
he's still developing.
That's true too. And just a quick point, not to be... I mean, look, I know I'm a Hamilton fan. I know people hate all Hamilton fans. But, again, we see this season, like, Lewis, once again, he's improved. Like, we haven't seen that good of a qualifying lap in Q3 from Lewis since I can't remember, since Spain 2012. I remember the Spain 2012 lap he had, which I don't know if that was because I don't know if that's
he was light on fuel. That's why.
Yeah, and I'm like, maybe that lap was really good because he's like, well, why is this car so light? And it's like, oh, there's no fuel. So maybe that's why Maldonado ended up winning that race. We know what happened there, but man, that's one of the greatest laps I've ever seen in Formula One. And I was watching the local coverage. We had local commentary on here after the race. When I got home, and Mark Webber was just, loved it. As he crossed the line, he couldn't believe it, Mark Webber. Like, great reaction as Lewis crossed the line to go up by 9/10. So I just wanted to suck him off a little bit more, which I'll stop doing. So, the Bottas, who finished 8th, Renault's 7th and 10th for Carlos. I don't know, not much to say there, but Bottas I want to speak about. The crash in qualifying. For me... The nerves were back for Q3. That's when I knew F1 was back for 2018. I'd gone through the practice sessions. Everything was all right. Then I'm like, oh, Q1, Q2, okay, everything's still all right. And then Q3, I was like, oh, I'm nervous again. What's happening? It's like my heart's sort of like, oh, I don't, what's this weird feeling I've got? And it's just, that nervousness of, is, the driver you want going to get pole? What's going to happen here? And it was just incredible there. And then Bottas, that crash, it's like, man, this is on. This pressure, I loved it. Not the Bottas crash, but I'm just saying the intensity of that Q3 session.
Did Bottas keep his foot planted because he was in the Mercedes and he thought that he could just carry on even after running that little bit wide?
Oh, yeah. Or maybe he thought, I don't know. Like, maybe if he knew that Mercedes was going to be as quick as 9/10 faster than Vettel, then why would you push that hard? Unless he was just trying to beat Lewis.
Oh, well, what is it they always say? The first person you need to beat is your teammate?
Yeah.
And, it's a hell of a benchmark as your teammate at the moment for Valtteri Bottas, to be able to compete with Lewis Hamilton. So, I don't know. I just think he was trying a little bit too hard. And it ultimately cost him. I mean, he did a good job to finish 8th, but he should have been up there in the top 3. He really should.
Yeah. So, Bottas there, around to forget, really, to finish 8th. And I was so surprised at the start when he was only 14th in the first few laps. I was like, where's all the overtaking? And, I'm not blaming Bottas for that.
And then you remembered it was Melbourne and there's no overtaking happened at Melbourne.
Exactly. So... I'm not blaming him for the overtaking, but I'm just saying it's just one of those rounds where you don't want to be crashing and qualifying. It's like crashing in a Monaco qualifying session, so it's never good for that. One thing, though, whenever they do that quick pan camera shot, so when Bottas crashed, a quickly pan to a crashed Mercedes, I'm always used to that being Hamilton. Hamilton crashing. I was like, fuck, like, here we go. Like, he's crashed again. Oh, my gosh. Like, he's been doing well. Then it said Bottas. I was just... not in a bad way, but I felt a little bit relieved, to be honest with you. I'm like, I'm so used to this now for 11 years, seeing Lewis be the one who crashes. So, look, I feel for Valtteri. I hope the pressure doesn't get to him too much. And by the way, Paul, he contacted me, Valtteri. He has a question for you later on, which we might we might cover in the Paul Smith helpline. Just rumors, who knows? Might have been him. It was from a private number, but the question insinuated that it was him. So I'm gonna just knock off the next few names and tell me where to stop if you want to say something. So the Renaults we know 7th, 10th, not a bad performance.
I was disappointed with Carlos Sainz Jr. Yesterday.
Apparently he was sick from.
Yeah, he was sick from his drinks bottle. He said.
Yeah, which by the way, when he was leaving the track, and by the way, we're gonna spend 5 minutes at the end of this discussing my antics with all the celebrities and everybody leaving the track. So Carlos was not happy, and he had 2-3 security around him. He did give me a little cheeky wink because I said something nice to him. I just said "vamos," as all people say.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh man, do you want to be my new agent?" No, he didn't say that. But he's like, he looked at me, he winked, but it's like that's as happy as he got. He just didn't want to sign nothing. He looked sick. He didn't look, pleased or anything. So I didn't know why that was until I heard about the bubbly drinks issue. Force India's though, Perez, Ocon, Force India. That's expected, right? They're expected to be the 7th team.
Yeah. Even with the Melbourne spec car that they brought, all these improvements to their aerodynamics and things like that they've been promising, they just don't work with it. And I do think that Force India are really going to struggle now. We're not expected to see the name change at all this season now. It's come out and said. The rumours of a soft drinks company coming in to buy them are apparently false as well.
So it's not Pepsi then?
Well, it was meant to be some energy drink company. I mean, what sort of energy drink could come in and buy an F1 team? So yeah, it was a bit disappointing. And the thing is, with Force India now, I can see them falling behind here. I really can see them falling behind the pack. And I think the last 2 years was sort of like their peak. And I think they're now on the downward slant, really. And if I was Sergio Perez, I'd be trying to get out of there. Esteban Ocon, I'd be sort of knocking on the doors as well to say, look at me, I'm
trying to get out of there
really
too.
Good driver. I need to get out of there.
Well, you know who can't get out of there? Vijay Mallya, because you'll get arrested.
Vijay Mallya can't leave the UK because he doesn't currently have a passport.
No way. By the way, did you see the grid photo for Charles Leclerc before the start of the race when they were going through the grid? It had Leclerc posing for the cameras, like adjusting his race suit, like he's adjusting some sort of jacket. It was like on one of those fashion magazines.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, didn't they say, hey, let's take a second picture of this? You look like you're in a fashion magazine. They're like, oh, let's keep that. He looks good. So that was Charles Leclerc for you. Anybody else? Brendan Hartley,
Lance Stroll, you missed out there.
Oh, Lance Stroll, excuse me.
Quite frankly, we could miss out Lance Stroll because, yeah.
I said
the least said about Williams, the better at the moment.
Okay. I'm going to skip Haas for a second because I want to speak about them last. But Gasly, Ericsson, Sorokin, I don't really have much to say on.
Sorokin's retirement caused by a sandwich bag.
Oh, really? Would he have like a rosin bag stuck in his brake pedal?
I don't know what it was, but apparently a sandwich bag had clogged up an air intake and that caused his retirement.
Oh, from the track?
Yeah.
I thought it was like a stuck brake pedal or something.
No, it was a sandwich bag.
How have I not heard about this? It's been 24 hours.
Oh,
have I not read the
program?
Wherever. So okay, that's I've seen some bizarre incidents. Like I remember the AstroTurf being stuck to was that Button or was it Hamilton? I can't remember. But at Korea one race, there was one of the visor tear-offs.
Yeah.
Going into the engine cover of one car and like overheated the engine. I don't know, but that's ridiculous. Sandwich cover, whichever fan that was.
Hang your head in shame. One, for littering, because you shouldn't litter, and two, for causing an F1 driver to retire from a race, from his first race.
Yeah. So you know how the Halo, it can take enough pressure to withstand the force of a double-decker bus. Have you heard that, by the way? It's the first time that's ever been mentioned.
I've not heard that before, but thank you for mentioning it.
So, that Sauber, when you watch it drive, I reckon that feels like a double-decker bus. Like, Leclerc finished 13th. Ericsson obviously didn't finish the race in 19th, but God, that Sauber looks just a dog to drive. It is heavy. It is like driving a double-decker bus. It's like driving two Halos. And it's, I don't know, that Sauber is just, it doesn't look pleasant. I mean, like, believe me, when you watch the onboards of the Sauber compared to you watching the onboards of, like, the big three teams of Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, they're just so much more fluid with the car. It's incredible with them. Nothing to add on that?
It's like a 1970s Austin Princess. It's just terrible.
And what's that car called? The three-wheeler again. Reliant Robin.
Reliant.
Yeah.
Reliant Robin. Yeah, sorry, you said it the right way.
So, maybe that would make the Sauber a bit more entertaining this year, because that car is not fun to watch on board. It's just so heavy. Make it three-wheel. Just have one wheel at the front. See what happens. Haas's now. Oh my goodness. This is a calamity. When was the last time you remember such a huge team calamity and as much of a big catastrophe as this?
I can't remember which team it was, but there were about 4 or 5 years ago, there was one team had issues with the wheel guns not torquing up.
Yes.
Not properly. I can't remember which team it was now. But
I don't know. I
remember it a few years ago where basically one wheel gun wasn't torquing up because it hadn't been calibrated properly, and that caused retirements as well. Was it Renault actually?
Possibly. You're talking about the old Lotus Renault?
No, I'm talking about Renault before they became Lotus Renault.
I remember the Alonso, which he should have won that race, Hungary 2009.
Hungary, yeah.
And the wheel just fell off the car. I think Lewis ended up winning that race. But yeah, Alonso, that Renault was pretty quick, by the way, that season. I remember Alonso speaking about how he scored a lot of points at the end of 08 and at the end of 09 as well. That Renault was pretty quick. But yes, Haas, I feel bad for him. I don't know if they can make up for this. Hopefully that car develops well throughout the season, because if you have a quick car to start the season well, and we've seen this from Haas in the past, they score really well at Melbourne. They seem to start seasons well. And, right now, just missing out on a double points finish. Which, by the way,
And they were in a very good position as well in the top six. They were in the top six. It could have been a double top six finish for them.
Yeah, could have been, definitely. You and I have discussed fantasy, and I pick Haas because I'm like, oh, they're cheap, they'll be
Haas
great
as well.
Fuck me, like this is the epitome of why fantasy is rigged. Yeah, I don't understand.
So Haas just to spite us too, in Fantasy F1, went, do you know what's a good idea? Let's retire from really good point-scoring positions.
But you see, with fantasy, it's like you don't pick the logical option. Right now, you're meant to pick, generally, if you haven't picked a Mercedes, you're silly. And if you've wasted all the money on the Mercedes, then you have to pick teams like, Renault, Haas, all those other teams. So you'd pick a Renault and a Haas, logically, or a Force India or one of those teams that would be cheap. Right now, it's like, okay, who the hell picked Ferrari instead of Mercedes, to be honest with you? With a Mercedes being that quick, I don't... this fantasy's just pissing me off. Well, let's just leave it at that. So, looks like I'm not going to win that. Which
a friend of mine who's in the league that we're in, he was bragging, saying he's in third place, not bad for... considering he stopped watching F1 when Jacques Villeneuve had retired.
See, this is... You see what I'm saying?
I'm like, okay, get your bragging in now, sunshine.
He's going down. I got my lineup down pat. But anything else to cover? I want to go... No, there's nothing else to cover, is there? I might just cut this bit out. You don't have anything else to cover?
Not from the results.
Cool. Moment of the weekend. I have a couple. Do you want to go first? I want to make...
I have a couple. I expect one of them is going to be the same. And that is... And I know it's cliche, but Lewis Hamilton's pole lap.
Oh.
My goodness. That was just... Wow. To be that far ahead of everybody on your lap was just unbelievable. And you watch that lap back as well, and it's like, wow, this is just incredible. I mean, I'm not the big. I mean, it's well known that I'm not the biggest Lewis Hamilton fan, but I respect his ability as a driver, and for him to get that out of that Mercedes was just sensational. It was a brilliant lap. That's one of my moments of the weekend.
Yeah, for me to see a 1:21 at Melbourne is absolutely insane. I remember years ago when a 1:23 was like, you'd have to be an alien in a computer game to set that kind of stuff. Although F1 2010 by Codemasters was so unrealistic, you could set 1:19s. but watching the Lewis's lap, I'd never seen a car grip so well through the final corner at Melbourne. That right-hander, and it just was spot on. That is one of the toughest corners at the circuit, and it's just insane. But I've gone with a different approach for a moment of the weekend.
Okay.
So I've gone with two.
Well, I've got two, but I'll let you say your first.
Okay, I'll save my best one to last. The first one I want to say is, did you see the new qualifying position boards at the end with the old Formula One logo?
Yes, I saw them. It was like somebody at FOM has been like, okay, yeah, we've got all the branding on the TV. Yep, that's check. Branding around the circuit, branding on the concession stands. We've got new T-shirts and everything. Yeah, it's great. Oh, where's the qualifying boards? Oh, we've got them here, lads. We've got them here. All right, put them out. Oh, crap.
So I don't logically, why would you use them then? Surely there's some form of maybe they just grabbed them in like 5 minutes to go.
Literally will have just grabbed them
and said it's like, oh, we're going to set
them out
quickly.
And I bet nobody realised until they saw it on TV and it was pointed out to them, because that F1 logo is so ingrained in your mind as an F1 fan or somebody who works in F1 that you think that's right. There's nothing wrong with that, but it was wrong. So that was hilarious. I loved that.
Yeah. You go with your second moment.
My second moment, and it's something that you rarely see. Really, we always see the drivers, going around sort of shaking hands with their mechanics. It all started really with Lewis Hamilton. He was one of the first ones really that you saw visibly going around shaking the hands with all the mechanics, and you'll see that with drivers and things like that. One side that you rarely see is when something has gone wrong, and you see a driver actually taking the time out to console those team members. And there was a thing that went up on social media from Formula One, and one of the journalists of F1 journalists as well put up a photo of it, of Romain Grosjean in the paddock consoling the team member of Haas who was on the wheel gun that had failed or that had not tightened up properly, and who was still completely decked out in all his gear because he was just sat there just absolutely despondent. And it's rare that you get to see that sort of human side to the drivers, and it says a lot about Romain Grosjean as well, I think, as a person, the way that he's matured and the way that he has come across in these sort of like last 4 or 5 years is more sort of like he takes time for his team and things like that, and it really showed that human side to him, and that's why it is even though it was a really down point, it's one of my sort of moments of the weekend.
So Grosjean's one of the directors of the Grand Prix Drivers Association, and he's always been a great leader, and so he shows it there. I've always been a bit harsh on him when it comes to all I hear about is the radio messages, which I've started to. Someone pointed out to me the other day saying, these guys are in the heat of the moment. You can't always be calm. And I was thinking, hey, great point. You can't always be composed. You can't always be self-assured in those situations. You're in a tough moment. So you don't want to judge Grosjean on radio messages, although please, Roman, do not rant anymore this year on the radio. So where we're at, moment of the weekend. That's a great one, by the way. I like that one. I did not have that. My second one. The people who put those weather radars and say that it's going to rain on certain days and say this much rain is going to come. Meteorologists. I can't even say it.
Meteorologists, yeah.
So, can I just tell them to say, don't tell me on a Saturday that it's going to piss down rain and thunderstorm and I'm going to be at risk of dying from lightning by standing on the Albert Park racetrack. And then I show up to the racetrack, and not only is there like a little sph of rain falling onto the circuit, just like somebody just accidentally spat from the sky and it just sprinkled all over the place. Just one spit. Hardly any rain. If you put on wet tires, would have overheated. Like, there was literally nothing. So I'm there when it's wet for practice 3. Qualifying, great. Qualifying's going well. Q3s, all this kind of stuff. Dry for qualifying, that's okay. Don't make me prepared frickin' bring 50,000 umbrellas and bring ponchos and jackets and all this bullshit and make me reconsider going to the day and skipping a day to then having to show up, and then no rain comes out. And then on Sunday, they're like, okay, rain could come at this time. It could not. No, it's all inaccurate. I just want to have a rant for a second. If you're a meteorologist, okay, I don't know how hard that job is, but if it's not raining at 4 o'clock, don't say it's going to rain at 4 o'clock. Don't confuse me. Is this an unfair rant to have, Paul?
I remember that the one time I went down to Australia for the 2014 qualifying, it rained in the middle of qualifying. Not really hard, but it rained. Then later that evening we had a thunderstorm. That was spectacular, by the way. But the weather forecasters hadn't really forecasted it. So it might be just a little bit of Melbourne thing. Does Melbourne have its own like little mini climate that kind of like Spa, where you don't know whether it is going to rain or isn't, and they say it is going to rain, but it doesn't end up doing.
Yeah. Melbourne's confusing with weather. So I'll tell you what, this is like a meteorologist's Monaco Grand Prix coming to Melbourne. It is not easy to predict. It is all, tight windows, has to get it right. So that's my moment of the weekend with meteorologists. Fuck them. Get your game on. Winners and losers now. So, a quick knockoff for winners. I want to say Ferrari number 1.
Oh God, yeah.
Is that the number
That's
1 winner?
That's an easy winner. Yeah, that is an easy big winner because
they actually won the race.
They played it perfectly. Absolutely did it perfectly. I would say another winner out of the weekend would be Fernando Alonso as well.
Yep, Fernando Alonso was great. The funny thing is, Fernando Alonso a winner, I think, and let's do a quick sneak peek of losers quickly. I think McLaren could be a loser. Finding out that you're like the 6th fastest team in qualifying, that's to me, that's like a loser. But then the fact that Alonso got the 5th place, but Van Dorn still ended up 9th, I don't know, that's a difficult one to judge there. So maybe it's a bit harsh calling McLaren a loser at this stage. But sorry, I'm jumping ahead. The FIA are winners again. Ferrari international assistance for pretending there's a virtual safety car and then pulling out the real safety car. No, I'm just being a sook. Sorry. That was too far, I think, in terms of homerism.
I don't know. I'm always a person of positives. Positive was Danny Rick finishing 4th.
Yep.
Considering where he started because of his 3-place grid penalty, for the audacity of going slightly too fast through one sector in a red flag. Wow. That's oh man, that was so you, Danny. But and also being stuck behind the Haas's and being able to move forward. Okay, the Haas's went out, and we'll get to them in a second. I would imagine. But to finish 4th, though, considering where he was to start with, I thought that was a winner for him.
And I think today, with Verstappen spinning out, and with Max pushing too hard, showing a bit of inexperience, Red Bull will be thinking, ooh, better keep Danny Rick on this team. He's going to give us some great points. They've got the best lineup by far in terms of duo. So let's see, Red Bull. Hopefully they can manage to keep him. So Danny Rick, definitely a winner. I can't really name many other winners out here. I'd say, you know what?
Will Buxton. Will
yeah.
Buxton is a winner. Just considering that he thought he was going to be unemployed, not involved in Formula 1 at all, to be picked up by FOM to front up a lot of their coverage on social media and at the track as well. Had hats off to Will. He deserves it because he is one of the best interviewers and also commentators as well when he gets the opportunity to commentate as well.
I want to also credit, by the way, Will Buxton. Listen to my podcast because I told him, hey, Will, you should be signing with Formula One and doing all their media coverage. And hey, he did it now. So credit to me on that. Credit to Will Buxton having a job this year. The other thing is, I waited 2.5 hours for him after the race. And he, never left the track. He was hard at work. I waited in the frickin' rain. My umbrella was about to fly off into the distance. It was basically had DRS on, my umbrella. It was going to fly off into oblivion, and I'm just waiting there. There's some French dude, some random dude I just met who I was speaking to. And he's like, oh, bonjour this, baguette that. And then I'm, okay.
Bonjour this, baguette that.
So he's waiting for...
Brie?
He's waiting for someone else. I think it was Rosberg. I just told him, I'm like, it's dark. It's pissing down rain. I was shivering. It was that bad. I was like, I'm out of here. Like, you know what? I'll see you next year, Will Buxton. So I definitely waited for him. I think it was like the last guy I wanted to see who still hadn't left the track. As well as Lewis. I saw, Vettel, Raikkonen, and all that. I'm getting excited, Paul. I'm discussing this before we should be. But yeah,
so the winners.
The winners, we've covered that. No, we've done the winners. We've
okay, then losers.
So Haas is a definite loser. What a catastrophe.
Definitely.
They're a team that would have been in the winners column, but then shifted to the losers. I think, who else is a loser? Do we say Australia or Williams?
I would say Williams. It just cemented what everyone feared about them. That the car is not good enough, and that it doesn't appear that the drivers are able to get the best out of what the car can give them. And that really is a big worry for Williams. And for I think it was Claire Williams actually came out in the press this weekend and admitted that Williams will never win enough of a Grand Prix whilst the top three teams have the spending power that they do.
Well, that motivates your engineers, doesn't it? So
yeah, absolutely.
I think Australian drivers are losers because, yet again, just cannot get on the podium in their home race, cannot win in their home race. And there's all this hype for Australian drivers to do well, and it's always disappointment year after year. And I'll tell you what, I sort of actually feel for the Australian crowd because they stick in there and they want them to win. It'd be a great victory of all time in Formula One if I think Ricciardo could win his home race. That would be insane. Germany's seen it heaps with Schumacher and blah, 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 this, whatever. But like for an Australian driver to do it at their home race, man, that would be insane. I mean, what happens if a track like Zandvoort comes back, Paul, and you have Max Verstappen winning that? Like, God, could you imagine the scenes?
Yes, I could imagine the scenes.
Drunk
it would
people.
Be crazy. Yeah, it'd just be full of drunk Dutch people. It'd be spectacular. But yeah, I would say another loser, and it's cementing my thoughts about it, is Albert Park itself.
Oh, no.
Formula One.
You're insulting my home ground. So in what sense?
As the actual track. The atmosphere that you have in the crowd and all that, from what I've experienced, is fantastic. I love that. But the track does not lend itself to Formula One racing anymore.
No,
don't say
that.
And we've got it on the calendar until 2023.
Good. Don't say that. If the cars were better, if the cars had promoted overtaking, it'd be fine.
What year was the last time we had a thriller, a truly memorable Grand Prix at Albert Park?
2014.
Which had action everywhere.
2014, 2012 and 2013 were good. 2011 was boring. 2010 was a great race. 09 was great too, I thought. 08 was a crash fest.
09 was all right because of the fact that you had Braun confirming what people... You had the feel-good story there, and you had the drama of Lewis and Trulli swapping
no, but don't forget
the safety car and
Kubica and Vettel too, crashing in the final laps.
Yeah.
So there was that too. Look, 09 wasn't the best race, but I'm just saying, okay, maybe like 2015, 2016 weren't that good, but hey, 2017, 2018. You're right.
2015, 2016 were, and then you've got 2016 was a bit meh. 2017 was god awful, and then this year was god awful. I mean, Max Verstappen even come out in the press and said, "I wouldn't have watched that shit." He doesn't mix his words, does he? Just Verstappen?
No, he doesn't. And that's let's keep it that way.
I would put that as a loser. At the moment, it is partly down to the cars. I will admit that, and it's a moan that I've had about the cars for the last 3 years with these rules that they've introduced, and it's just getting worse because they keep on developing the aerodynamics, so it makes the cars even worse to follow each other.
Yeah, I might have to ban you from this podcast. I can't be listening to this stuff.
The second time I've been banned from this podcast.
Okay, both times it's been for lack of sleep. Maybe it's that, Paul. That's possibly. I don't know. But that's pretty much it. I am not listening to the Albert Park loser story. I think it's a great track, Albert Park. I think you should be signed till 2050 when electric cars will take over Formula One and there won't be any more drivers. There will be driverless cars. One more loser is ESPN and US viewers of F1. Until that streaming service comes in, man, the things I heard about ESPN reminded me of the free TV days from Australia. And I was just like, I couldn't believe what they had to endure.
I'll tell you what, Kevin Bobbitt from iRacing actually had little thoughts on the ESPN coverage. From the Formula One. He says, watch the ESPN coverage of F1 and I am missing Lee Diffie and Will Buxton and the rest of the old gang. Missed many key moments of the race due to commercials that are never covered since the Sky Sports team don't know when the US viewers are on commercials.
So that was, I feel for US viewers. Can't wait for that streaming service, guys. You'll get it soon. And I know they said they're going to VPN restrict it, but I'm going to find a way. So
be like the NBA. Be like the NBA.
Yeah, exactly. Look at the NBA's market share. It's incredible. So, the Paul Smith helpline. An anonymous private number texted me this. Can you believe it? That you can get private numbers by text now.
I cannot believe that this would happen.
Cannot believe it. Someone texted me. It's like, hey, please don't mention my name. They put their name in brackets. So they gave it away. They're like, I'm under pressure and I'm slowly finding my way to being Lewis Hamilton's Rubens Barrichello. How am I able to prove myself when I'm teammates with the greatest driver of all time? No, I'm joking. I added that in. With the current world champion on the grid. I'm assuming this is from Valtteri Bottas.
They want to keep this anonymous. How do I beat the current world champion?
Who I'm teammates with. Might be Pascal Wehrlein. Who knows? How do we fix that, Paul? I'll give you 30 seconds to fix it.
How do we fix it? First of all, don't crash in qualifying. That's a good start. Secondly, need to look at what Lewis is doing with the car, maybe see if you need to adjust your driving style slightly, and maybe get a bit more aggressive on track as well. I think maybe a little bit passive on track occasionally, but can win races. You just need to get more out of the car and get more out of yourself to be able to compete at that top level, and maybe get yourself more in the Rosberg role rather than the Kimi role.
The pressure's on.
He does to me come across a little bit passive on track at times. Not sort of doesn't really show that ruthless aggression that some do show.
Of an Alonso
on track, of an Alonso, of a Lewis, of a Sebastian Vettel. Yeah, I mean, the ultimate show of ruthless aggression back when his Red Bull days at Malaysia.
Yeah.
This is... you've got to have that edge to be a champion. You could be a race winner and be a very quick driver, don't get me wrong. But to be a champion, you've just got to have that little bit of an edge that pushes the boundaries. And that's why so many of world champions are not maybe sort of like the greatest role models for people. And you look back at Ayrton Senna, some of the stuff that he did was questionable and downright deliberate. Michael Schumacher, of course, deliberate acts on track that we all know and read about. These great champions, these multiple-time champions, have that edge to them. Real competitive edge that they have to win at everything. And Valtteri Bottas just doesn't quite show that at the moment. It might come through for him. He might sort of adjust things. And he's on a 1-year contract. That's the biggest worry for Valtteri at the moment.
But that puts the pressure on too. Like that 1-year contract, when you're a driver, I know you don't think about, you're in the cockpit saying 1-year contract, 1-year contract. Obviously, you're not in that frantic of a situation, but when you show up to the weekend, you think, okay, I am not here for the next 2-3 years. It keeps him on his toes, but some people respond to that differently. If you sign someone to a 4-year deal, people will go, okay, great, like I can chill, I don't have to beat Lewis anymore, my teammate. But for Bottas, I feel like the long-term deal would actually help him. And right now, I think for his personality type, keeping him on 1-year deals, he's not one of those people that needs a 1-year deal to stay motivated. That's what it seems. I could be overthinking this. I could just be thinking, hey, he's just not as quick as a 4-time world champion. Moral of the story is, let's see where he ends up by the end of the season. Let's see if Pascal might even jump into that seat. So,
no, Esteban Ocon.
Oh, Esteban is a good one. So, actually, I want to bring something up now. After the race, 5 minutes. So, I again run to the podium. Everything's going well. Didn't beat my record, by the way, Paul, of getting to.
You need to work on your fitness. Get your fitness down.
No, I'll tell you what. My fitness is great. I've never been so fit in my life, but it's just for some idiot. I go to the best gate to get to the track. Final lap, I see Vettel celebrating. I'm like, great, now we take off. I go to the main straight, and I'm like, here's the gate that I took last year that got us to the perfect position for the podium. Some moron decided not to open the gate this year. I'm stuck in like a maze. I'm seeing all these people leaving from gates that are open, and I'm stuck in a box where I can't leave. Like, I can't even walk under people. So I just have to wait. And we ended up getting just under the start lights, which was absolutely terrible. I went back like 2-3 years on my last... I hadn't been that far back since about 2015. And it was just a calamity. Like, which person decides, hey, you know what, I'm going to run to the track and not open this gate? And, oh, God, I mean, that's just one that got away. So that happened. And then I went to that Melbourne walk where all the drivers have to leave the track. The one where they're signing all the autographs. Yeah,
around the little roundabout, yeah.
How about you knock off names, and I'll tell you who I spoke to, the stories, and what happened. There were a lot.
So, Formula 1 personalities. Because it was in Australia, I'm going to say, I don't know, Danny Ricciardo.
Well, Danny Ricciardo was in his Aston Martin, by the way, just letting you know. Red Bull drivers had Aston Martins driving them to the track. That was it. He just drove off. I think he left pretty late, so it was during the rain. So guys like him, Kimi, probably Lewis too. Toto Wolff left really early. Very, very early. Toto Wolff just took off. So that was that. Who else was...
Fernando Alonso.
Alonso walked, which was great, as usual. Alonso was very happy this time, signing for people, had security around him as usual. Good stuff from him. Very handsome man, as usual.
Well, I mean, he's a handsome devil, is Fernando Alonso. Did you know that his favourite sim racing broadcaster is myself? I completely made that up. It's not true.
Oh, started there, Paul. You made me happy. I was like, he's listened to 6 hours of you. So maybe.
I'm lying.
Who else we got?
Brendan Hartley. Why not? It's kind of near as New Zealand. I know a load of Kiwis are now going to absolutely hate me for that comment, but I don't care.
I didn't see Brendan Hartley for some reason, but talking about those back of the grid drivers. So I see. First of all, where is he? I'm trying to find it. Lance Stroll.
Oh, Lance Stroll.
I see Lance Stroll. So I yell out Lance Stroll, 2021 world champion. But it became, and he said thanks very much. He's like, thanks for the support. He looked at me. He's like, great. But then it became conflicting because 5 minutes earlier I yelled out Pascal Wehrlein, 2021 world champion. Little did he know that I'd yelled it to another driver. And guess who else I yelled it to? Esteban Ocon, 2021 world champion. 3 of them. have to compete. They all said thanks too. So, look, I'm not being harsh. I was just saying that, hey, one of those three could be a world champion. I put money on that. Who knows? So that was that about back of the grid drivers. Had conflicting praise. Carlos Sainz already spoke about how I yelled Vamos. Wow, incredible. Yeah. Everyone can do that.
Come on, just go rattle it through. Come on.
Simon Lazenby, Ted Kravitz left the circuit together, doing nice stuff. Hey, you can't be too harsh to Simon Lazenby. He's a nice bloke. He spoke to me for a little bit. Just say, nice job. Great. How'd you go today? He's like, yeah, good. Whatever. Blah blah blah. Johnny Herbert though, there was some British fans.
Oh, cheeky Johnny Herbert.
Yeah. Which, by the way, that limp he has. When he walks, his leg from that accident he had at Brands Hatch. Man, I'd never seen it so extreme. It's just weird when you think about it. You're like, this is the real Johnny Herbert because he walks like that. So
yeah,
that's a real thing. But there were these great British fans next to me who stopped and just were chatting bullshit to him. I think they were pretty drunk, but he enjoyed it. And he stayed for a few minutes. In the rain, too. How about that for Johnny Herbert? Guess who was a bit of a dill, as usual?
I mean, it's not like you're giving.
I've given a hint
there. Damon Hill.
Is he just perpetually angry at everybody?
No,
is it
just
his look?
Australians.
Just Australians. I don't know.
He has something against the Australians.
I don't know if it's his bushy eyebrows that give that perception that he's just angry at everybody. But man, I'm just scared of him. I just don't want to speak to him or say anything. I don't know. He'll be on this podcast soon.
Interesting story about his father. My dad, I know I'm going off on the tangent, but on about sort of interactions with Formula 1 drivers. My father went to Brands Hatch one year to watch some of the racing there, and there was Graham Hill's Lotus getting worked upon. And, back in the day, you could be stood next to the car whilst they start it up.
Yeah.
Sort of warm it up and things like that. Graham Hill comes out of the trailer. My dad had his autobiography on him because he was reading it between the races, and it was like, oh, excuse me, Graham, can you sign this for me, please? And Graham just absolute gentleman. Oh, absolutely. You've put your hard money into me, so absolutely I'll sign this. So he signed his autobiography. My dad's still got that.
Oh, that's amazing. So maybe Damon Hill's a great fella then.
He just didn't have his autobiography.
Mm.
That's what it is. If you'd have had that, he'd have been over straight away.
No, I think I'm being harsh. I think, when people have RBF, resting
bitch face, yeah.
So I think he's just got that. I feel like maybe he was happy as he was walking past, but people don't know that because his face just looks like he's angry at everybody. But I don't know. He's got that look. I'll get him on this podcast soon. I'll ask him that. Do you have RBF, Damon? That would be my first question to him. But Damon Hill was there. Who else? I pretty much saw everybody except for the one genuine person I wanted to speak to, which was Buxton. I don't know what time he left, but there was a few journalists that tweeted out that they left at 11 p.m.
Wow.
Oh, God. Imagine if I waited that long. I was just there.
In the cold and the rain, and you'd have had pneumonia.
Quick rant again. The podium interviews? Can I just say something, FOM? As fans, we can't hear anything. Turn it up, project it around the track speakers, do something. We cannot hear the podium interviews.
If you're... Now, I'm going to get technical on your ass now. Would you set up a PA system to put sound out onto the actual track where you're not normally got spectators? No, you have it set up for the perimeter of the track where you have the spectators. That's why you couldn't hear it.
Well, last year and this year, we are right next to the podium. I cannot hear the podium interviews. So I interject there. They have got them set up for the corporate wankers in the pit lane. I'm actually a corporate wanker because I work in corporate. But the corporate wankers who had corporate F1 tickets. And again, they're sitting there like, great, they can hear it. But hey, the fans that have run out here and are diehard fans that want to hear these drivers talk, you cannot hear a word that they're saying. And we are right next to the podium. Which actually reminds me, by the way, the new lower start lights they have this year?
Mm-hmm.
I reckon I could grab and steal one of them. I was thinking about it. They're that low and close to the circuit.
Nah, you wouldn't be able to nick that.
I would have
Not unless you got a spanner and a set of snips for cutting the cable.
Yeah, as they inspect my bag as I come into the circuit. What's this hammer and spanner for? Oh, I'm working on one of the cars. I'm planning to steal the light after the race, which actually reminds me. A goal of mine is to steal a DRS board one race that I attend. So not only the DRS board, but also one of the brake markers. It's like I want the 100. The 100's a good number to steal. So
it's not steal, it's acquire.
It's claim as my own. Pioneer. So as we acquire that in the future, I will do that. Oh, one quick thing before we go. The TV overlay, what are your thoughts?
Some parts of it I do like. One thing I didn't like was having the little steering wheels pointing in the opposite direction of where they were actually steering. That was one thing I noticed, but I like the idea of it. I would prefer it if they used that graphic when they're actually on board with the car. That would look a little bit better if they're on board rather than having it as off-board graphic. Generally, it was alright. I was glad they got rid of the stupid noise that they had whenever they showed the F1 logo on Friday practice. I'm glad that they got rid of that for qualifying and for the race. I don't mind the theme tune.
Yeah, theme tune's not that bad.
It's not, it's not, wow, this is amazing. I always think my theme tune of choice is always the guitar solo from in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. But, it's alright. It sounds like it's from Fox Sports or something like that. And apparently one of the people that's involved in FOM is actually from Fox Sports. So that might be a little bit of a hint as to why it sounds like that. But yeah, it was alright. Nice little intro to each one. I like how they were giving a little bit of facts about the area they're in and the sort of historical things that happened in the races. Like with your action zones, showing Ralf Schumacher going flying once again.
Yes, I love that.
I think they could change it up between qualifying and the race. Because if you're a fan, well, I mean, they had the same thing all the way through the coverage, the same bit of footage for the start of the FOM coverage. They could maybe mix that up a little bit, because if you're a fan
who watches all sessions,
sessions, or even qualifying in the race, it's the same.
Yeah.
So maybe just mix it up a little bit, just to have a few things in your pocket, so you can. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, I remember Martin Brundle going flying off into the outskirts of turn 3. That was after the first time I saw it. It was like, oh, they're just using the same thing over and over again. Okay.
Yeah. The logo, I think, is still that ex-girlfriend that was the one, and you just let her go. I still think it is. It's like that logo is always going to be the one. But I think like the new TV overlay, it's not that bad. I think if they get it right, if they don't show last name is 2 seconds ahead of last name, when they get rid of shit like that, did you see that, by the way? When they get rid of stuff like that, then it'll be okay. Yeah. So I don't know. The font I'm getting used to too. Font's not that bad. Not bad by FOM. Just a few touches and just minimizing the errors. They'll be okay.
I mean, look back to last year when we had the little mini sectors for qualifying on the graphics. They changed that soon when they realised actually people don't care. They just want to see the 3 main sectors. So, they're always open to suggestions and they're always open to constructive things as well. So hopefully, FOM listen to this podcast and, I've got a few ideas if you want to get in contact with me. I'm sure Johnny will pass on my details to you. But it's just little things. It's not like major things of, oh my god, this is broken, like the 2016 qualifying. That was 2016, wasn't it? With the
Yep, the terrible qualifying, knockout qualifying. Which, by the way, you mentioned FOM. Have you seen that Twitter account called @InsideFOM? So
no, I haven't actually.
So there's this Twitter account. It's just @InsideFOM. And it says in the description, not tweeting on behalf of FOM, Liberty Media, Formula One, etc., etc.
Yeah.
They're all just views on my own, not theirs. Number one, where do they get all this inside info from that they tweet about? They tweet about, like, overlays in Photoshop or something. Like they have the inside files. Surely they're from FOM. And everything they say is so political and positive. They're like, oh, this is great, and you should be supporting this because FOM is the best thing. Like, what the fuck? I'm not. This is like a Trump supporter. It's like telling me to support Trump. I don't want to fucking hear this stuff. Just tell me, show me the new overlays and that kind of stuff, but don't tell me what to do. So my point is, go check out that Twitter account. It's actually a great feed to have because they have a lot of inside information. Let's make our picks now for the Bahrain race. I love pronouncing it that way. So, favorite. Guess who the favorite is?
I'm going to say Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah. Lewis Hamilton's favorite. Vettel second. We're using Skybet for this. Bottas is third. Raikkonen sixth. Would you put Raikkonen sixth? And Raikkonen's pretty good at the Bahrain International Circuit. He's had some great success there. So you're putting him behind the Red Bull drivers. That's this is I have a feeling that Ferrari. Would you say they're the favorites going into Bahrain? Or do you think Mercedes still have that big advantage?
I still think they have the big advantage, but I think they're more aware of what Ferrari can bring to the table now. That first race of every season is always a little bit of an unknown because you don't know what a team's true race pace is until the actual race. So Bahrain, it will be a little bit more. Mercedes will be more clued up. Valtteri Bottas should be up there with Lewis as well. So you would imagine that the two Mercedes drivers are going to be really confident going into that one. And Mercedes do have a history of doing well at Bahrain as well. Ferrari, though, I would have said that they've been there in the mix, pushing Mercedes. And I think Red Bull will be just behind them in the mix as well, because there's quite a bit of high-speed sections as well, which, once again, lo and behold, Red Bull, what are they complaining about? Their engine. There's a shock. So, you're going to see them sort of pushing for that position as for those sort of top 6 positions, really. So it's going to be a mix of those. But I do think the Mercedes are just going to have that little bit of an edge, and they'll be 1-2 for the next race. Which order? Well, that's up to you.
Yeah, it might even come down to strategy again. So who knows how that's going to turn out. I'm not going to make picks, but I think, again, I feel like it'll be a similar race to Australia, just with more overtaking. And I think the race pace is what I'm going to be interested in. I still think qualifying will be dominated by Mercedes. I still think they're going to be the quickest car, but can they be fast over the race distance? And I'm looking at drivers like Verstappen and Ricciardo in those Red Bull cars who, Red Bull, their whole history and their culture is always been like, at least since the Vettel days ended, let's focus on that race pace. And same with Ferrari. Ferrari couldn't beat Red Bull back in that Vettel era. They're like, okay, well, let's all put our setup and prepare it for the race. I feel like this is what these teams are doing now. They're like, we're not going to catch Mercedes in qualifying. Let's do it all during the Sunday. So let's see how that ends up. Nothing to plug before we go?
As always, I'm streaming my racing on YouTube. That's youtube.com/Smileable. You can find me on Twitter using the same handle, Smileable. That's SMILERBULL.
Great. I've got a few things to plug, but I'll do them now. Follow me on Twitter at JohnnyS8, JONNYESS8. Paul Smith, you're at Smileable. Can you quickly say the story again, why you're Smileable, for people who don't know?
Basically, my nickname at school was Smiler, and I'm a Bradford Bulls fan, so put the two together. There you go.
Yeah, peanut butter and jelly. So goes well together. The Simon Racing Report, of course, it's available at thesimonracingreport.com. Don't miss any upcoming columns or upcoming podcasts, so subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and the one and all RSS feed. It's all on the homepage, so check those out as usual. And if you haven't liked the podcast on Facebook, or followed me on my Twitter handle, which I mentioned before, I'm going to hunt you down and find you. And I'm going to not screw on your front left or rear left tire the same way Haas did. And possibly end your chances of getting away. And you'll have to watch your back, guys. So like the podcast, please. And don't miss it. That's it. Episode 62. We'll catch you soon. Hopefully the Bahrain race has a bit more spice to it.
Here's hoping.